Motion to adopt agenda is presented. Well, Council Olson, all in favor? Carried.
She hasn't come on yet.
Do you want to jump ahead, Kim, and then come back?
Why don't we just jump ahead to my report,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor? It won't take long, and maybe then Sarah's up and running. So just wanted to touch base on the land use bylaw review process. So following the last council meeting, you guys accepted what we heard report for information. David and I met with Tracy this week. Yeah, earlier this week for a couple hours and went through comments, questions, and talked about whether we would recommend based on that. And we didn't get through it all. We probably got about halfway through another session planned for May 11th, for the morning of May 11th, to go through the comments and questions and suggestions. So what the plan is that we will have a version 2 of the land use bylaw to be presented to council at our June council meeting for first reading. Once it has first reading, then it's a document, and we are recommending that we would hold off on the public hearing until September. Just July, August, holidays, people away, just didn't want that to be a reason someone couldn't attend the public hearing. So that's the case. We would set a date in September for the public hearing, and then following the public hearing, bring back second reading at the October meeting, third reading at the November meeting, with it to be implemented and effective January 1, 2024. So that's kind of that's the plan as we sit right now. It also gives people an opportunity between first reading in June and the public hearing. There's potentially around 2 to 3 months there in between if they want to review it. Golf course, just I don't know, Councillor Olson may have an update. I know there's concern about water and the availability of water for the operation of the golf course. When I say water, non-potable water. So I don't know if there's any updates, Kyle. I know that Robin's been working, and Kevin with Garth.
Yeah, they've talked to
Options.
Garth lots. I mean, the gist of it, CN is usually where the water from, and it's down. I think it's flirting with 2 feet lower than where ideally it should be to get enough water. So yeah, there's enough water there to pull safely, even if we get no rain for a month or so. But the numbers he uses, like, it's 150,000 gallons a day when he does a full water on everything, which is an unfathomable amount to me. Yeah, Robin's,
Yes.
yeah.
That's just on the grounds. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so Robin and Brent as well. I've met with Garth a lot and trying to get some plans forward, but we'll cross our fingers for rain would be the best solution, of course.
Yeah, okay, just wanted to let you know that there is some concerns. I had suggested to Robin that perhaps if he wanted to pull a meeting together with town and Henry Kruger and golf course, that we'd be open to that. So
We talked,
no, go ahead.
we talked to Henry Kruger about some options. Pumping into the dam is a lost cause. You lose 20% evaporation right off the bat. So then we apparently, and there's a CN pump house on the north side of the dam, I believe.
Yeah.
So what was the feeling was is to contact the landowners and see if we run a temporary line from there over to the pump that's south of the dollhouse. And pump it straight up to the reservoir at the golf course. That's kind of what We decided it would be the best alternative from
Yeah.
a Henry Kruger standpoint. No, I don't know if it got any further than that.
Yeah, the big issue again, to not have a ton of water there anyways, and they can pull, I think, 30,000 gallons a day through that existing stuff, to that pump house, but it'd be enough to do, 15% water.
Yeah.
Which is better than nothing, but if there's no water there to pump out, is the struggle.
So just wanted to make sure you were that, airport,
Sarah's online.
okay, yeah, I'll just finish mine and then we go there. So the airport runway lighting, just to keep you in the loop, so it is currently out to tender. We had a site meeting last week. There was a handful of potential contractors out to view the site and get their head wrapped around what the project entails. Tender closes May 4th, and the intention is to bring the tender award to the May 9th council meeting. So hopefully we've got some good tender bids and we're able to move forward. Just the last thing, just in case you're not aware, effective May 1st, Waste is removing the paper cardboard bins between Friesen Brothers and Super 8. I know that there's been a little bit of feedback on social media. People aren't necessarily happy with that, but I know that they have had some significant contamination of the bins in terms of people putting garbage in. And I know they had an issue with the truck that they use to haul it. So just want to let you know, I guess, and I don't know if Councilor Kroll has any comments on it to being our member.
Yeah, and the other thing is, no insurance on it sitting on that property. This way out at the dump, it's manned, during the day, and it's covered under the waste transfer insurance. Because that property that it sits on.
Well, it's private property.
Yeah.
So,
And nobody really, wants to insure it or cover it if somebody slips or something like that. Like Kim said, contamination, they're just throwing household garbage into the recycling bins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
so if you get feedback from residents about that, that's the answer. And I guess not that we're trying to deflect, but that, is a decision of the commission. So I unfortunately, you can put them through to Councilor Kroll, or if they have any, if they're have any questions you can't answer, or they're unhappy with the situation, and then Councilor Kroll is the conduit to the board and go from there. So I just want to make sure you were aware that was transpiring. So
They've had those signs for years.
Yeah.
Saying, please do not put garbage in, and, I don't blame them. It's gonna be an inconvenience, but if people don't follow the rules, I don't think they understand the contamination and such.
It's Hanna was the last town to have their recycling in the off site, the coffee transfer site, so. It's not.
So I think that's, I'm open to any questions that the council may have, Mr. Mayor. We are moving, we're into that point where we're moving into our outdoor season. So I think 5 of the 6 ball diamonds are ready to go. Still one on the triplex that still has some water on it. So we're hoping by the end of this week that might be good enough to be drug and ready to play. Soccer started. I didn't see them last night, but I believe they're going out onto the JC Sherrick field. How did that go? Were you there, Kyle, or?
My son was. He said it was good. He was happy to be.
He's
out there.
probably used to playing on that nice turf from school anyway, so it's
Yeah.
not a big thing, so.
No, the big change there is, of course, enrollment is low in so many of these sports. So he's 12 years old, and he was gonna have to play U17, this high school kid, so he wasn't real thrilled, but they're some late registrations, and now they actually have an appropriate age seat.
Grounds, no.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we're moving forward. Again, the plan was Fox Lake to open next week. I know there's still some snow out there, even as of yesterday, so. But yeah, we're moving into that. Won't be long, we'll be prepping the pool for opening, and so things are going along.
Crosswalk and palace will be done this week.
Yeah, they'll have that installed. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Hearing none, do you need a motion to? for
No,
explanation?
no.
I didn't think so. Okay, Sarah, sorry about that. We were looking for you and then we jumped ahead of you, so.
You can't hear.
One
You're
second.
muted, Sarah.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, yes, I was. Okay, so am I good to go?
Yep,
All right, well, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'll share my screen here in a minute. We have gone and changed the drawings for the bump outs on Second Avenue with the feedback that I got at our last council information center or meeting. And I've updated the cost estimates as well to let you know how that impacts the costs. So I'll share my screen here. Okay, can you guys see that, the drawing up on the screen?
Yes, we can, Sarah.
Okay, so this is the intersection of Second Avenue and Second Street West. So in black, this is our new concrete bump out design. We added a few lines to this drawing to show you kind of the progression of this design. The green dash line, I'm hoping you can see that, but that's the original bump out that was proposed by 818 Studio. The red dash line, that's the concrete bump out that I presented to you at the end of March. And then, yeah, obviously the stuff in black here is our revision since then. So you can see at Second Street West, we removed the bump outs from the west two sides here, but we've kept them on the east. We've shrunk those bump outs to about half of what we had presented last time. And big items here, we've removed the trees from the bump outs. We've reduced the number of tables and benches. So we used to have about 1 to 2 tables per corner, plus 2 benches on each corner. So now we've reduced that down to typically be 1 table or 1 bench per corner.
Is that out here? The team?
That would be the ATV and
Okay.
deadlocked building.
Okay.
So these are the tables here. It's 1 table on the north side and we have a bench on the south side here. These squares, those are the planters. So we've reduced the number of planters as well. We used to have about 3 on each corner, and now we're showing roughly 2 on each corner. As well,
those actually serve 2 purposes, Sarah, as far as the planter, yes, but also an indicator where the bump out is in the winter time.
yeah, so we've tried to put 1 on each side. There's also these bollards, those black dots.
Okay,
So those as well stick out of the ground. And we have
Okay.
that.
So the planters permanently fixed to the ground, or are they movable then?
No, the planters are movable. Yeah, so they could be
Any
moved.
questions on this bump out?
Are the tables fixed or are they removable as well?
The tables and the benches are bolted to the concrete.
Okay, thank
They
you.
could be unbolted if you need, but yeah, they're bolted down. I think the main thing with those is if you have a really strong wind gusts, you don't want those blowing over.
Yeah. I just was thinking for winter, if that was a possibility.
Yeah, or if you want them removed, you can unbolt them from the ground. Okay, Yeah, as well, we had shown some windscreens on our previous design, so the windscreens have been removed as well as all the trees. Is there any
The
question?
bottom- Yeah, the bottom left corner one, why is there any bump outs there? That's actually the driveway.
That's
Yeah.
not a bump.
That's not, but right now, there's a sidewalk right here, and we proposed to put in wheelchair ramps, since there's no wheelchair ramps there right now.
Okay. Thank you.
But the other thing on that corner, just to point out too, because we do have bump outs on both sides, when you're heading east, there will have to be designation of the right lane against the curb to be a right turn. So generally, I don't think it's an issue. Most people won't be driving close to the curb and planning to go straight through, but
Yeah, I see that.
And that's where we put these bollards right here in that planter as well, to try and indicate that there is a bump out there as well.
Yeah, that's true.
okay, I think you can move to the next one, Sarah.
Right. Okay, so at First Street West. So now we have bump outs on each corner. Right, but again, you can see in the green is where 818 Studio originally had the bump out, and then the red is where I presented last time. So we're about half of what we were previously. And again, same changes as the last intersection. We've moved all the trees when the windscreen. We've reduced the number of tables and benches. So the benches are proposed on the north side at this intersection and a table at each south side. One other change we've made is we've included some of these parking stalls to have an angle on the bump out like this. So you can, it basically helps to increase the number of parking on that side. The other option we had given is as you can see in the red and green, it kind of just took up a lot more space to transition back to the sidewalk. So the other thing with these bump outs, I should mention, since they're shorter now on the adjacent roads, you can see these dash lines. The red dash line is what I presented last time. And now it's the black dash line, which would be the extent of where our construction would go. So the deep utilities and the asphalt would now be replaced to this black line. So without having to pave or replace utilities in this length at each tie-in has reduced the costs as well.
Question, go ahead, Lori.
Sarah, on the bottom right, just because it's easier to say that than north and south. Moving over to the right a little bit, the wheelchair icon and the wheelchair ramp. I wonder if they could be swapped, because I'm thinking the way traffic goes and a possible handy van entry and an entry and parking and ramp. Like all the other ones, they're flipped.
Yeah. Like this one here. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Generally, and I don't know, I know our handy van, you get out on the passenger side.
So it has to be on the passenger side.
So I think the one in the bottom corner would be more suited.
But sometimes from a handy van driver from way back, you would park it if you're allowed to vertically and put the ramp down right onto the sidewalk. I guess you wouldn't with the ramp.
Yeah, I'd have
Okay.
the guidelines. Basically, there's a certain width that's needed next to the wheelchair spot, and there has to be a wheelchair ramp dedicated or accessible, but I'm not sure if there's any guidelines on which side it needs to be on. But I could,
on. Well, they're all on passenger. Yeah.
They're all on passenger.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
yeah, that might be what it was.
Except for the bottom left. That one might have to be flipped.
Oh, yeah, that was.
This one here,
Yeah.
that'd be the,
No, that's passenger. No, passenger.
All right, yeah, you're right. Yeah, sorry. Yes, you're back in a minute.
Just on the other side of your mouth.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Turn the map around.
Yeah.
And so there isn't one on the other side as well?
Dental clinic?
Yeah.
Well, can you,
right
there's
there.
not, you don't have one on the dental clinic side. I guess, Sarah, there's a question here whether, do you want one on the dental clinic side?
Or I don't know, like does, so there's three.
Which would, yeah. Which would be your top left, yeah.
We
so
could,
I don't-
we've kept the same wheelchair spots that were recommended with 818 Studio, but we can definitely add one in. If you'd like to see one here as well.
I don't know, is that a value? I would think,
I wouldn't
I
hurt.
would think maybe the dental clinic might see more with the wheelchair
Yeah.
access. with
So these
the-
are designated spots for only wheelchair.
Well, we're
Handicap
handicap park.
Not necessarily wheelchair.
So you would lose a parking spot in front of the dental clinic, which was probably,
Which would
Two
be
spots.
better, losing one
You lose
like
two
on the
spots.
bottom versus having one up on top, like swap it out for the left side or not?
and it goes always.
Then you're dealing with Western Financial and, yeah, I guess it's hard to know which one. would
I don't know if
be
you
so-
consider that you would lose two spots, because one's handicapped. You'd lose one spot and one would be a designated
For the-
handicap.
Just a thought, is
Yeah.
there one that, like, does one have to go on every corner or not?
Well, that's one my question would be like, why do we need so many? I think it takes up. I don't know.
I don't know, would they, maybe it would just be a matter of the driver being aware of which ones are available and going to either one on the north or one on the south.
Go one on the dental clinic side and one on the vacant lot side. Or kitty corner, so that.
Yeah.
I don't know, what is the protocol typically for wheelchair access and such? Is it on every corner or is it alternate or?
I
there one?
don't know if there is a protocol, but I think that, again, and I've learned this over the years, and until you're,
Meeting.
Until you
until
don't
you're
have that.
impacted with a handicapped person in a wheelchair, it's one of those things where you don't. It doesn't
Understand.
register in your mind. Certainly, even if there was two, it's two better than it was.
So if there's one going east and one going west,
As long as the curbs are.
That's
easy
what I
to
think,
get
even if you
over.
don't have them, as long as you have ramp access, what difference does it make? Like, as long as like, even on the north, west side there, if you have, like, will they still have ramp access
Mhm.
on the sidewalk or the boulevard there?
I guess it depends if there's another car park right in close proximity where they're trying to park.
So
That's what
Sarah,
these things
where,
are.
those are wheelchair ramps right there, right?
Here, yeah, so if we put a wheelchair spot here, there'd have to be a ramp as well. So then they don't have to come out in the road to access the sidewalk. If there's a wheelchair, right? So if there's a wheelchair ramp here, it would need to come with the painted pavement and a wheelchair ramp as well.
What if you put it up on the east side of the dental clinic, on the northeast? Well,
No, up above, Sarah, right at the edge of your black line to the north.
On First Street West.
Yeah, right there.
See, that's parallel parking there
yeah.
too, so.
Or just get rid of them on the
Handicap,
bottom
you
line.
need two spots or handicaps, you can pull in, however.
Yeah, I'd have to check with my design engineer if he could put one up here. And what would need to be done. So you'd probably have to put a wheelchair ramp right here.
But that sidewalk is fairly wide to be able to accommodate me a little better, but
Yeah.
The other option is this here, we could put a wheelchair ramp probably right in here. So we could definitely do it. It's just a matter of, yeah, just preference for you to like to see them.
So what's
well, I don't know.
consensus?
Well, at the end of the day, the reason why they exist is to ensure that there's always a spot available for someone who has difficulty accessing.
Mobility, and that doesn't necessarily mean handicap.
No, that's why,
Or a wheelchair,
right,
sorry.
so it could be any kind of mobility. Where it comes into an issue is if this is downtown Calgary, it's extremely important because it's very hard to get a spot. But in Hanna, not very often can you not find somewhere, whether you have a disability or not, that you can access the door. So having the ramps is fantastic, but I don't think our town has a need for 4
One on the-
per intersection. I think that's a lot. Because now your enforcement's going through the roof, because every single one of those spots has to be enforced.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with 1 at each
Yeah.
intersection.
Just remove this one.
And I just think of the businesses that are there,
Yeah.
you know, especially this one, you know, if we, you know, I'm all about the access, but is, you know what? Would they be concerned that that has a designated only spot and access, because you know people how they are.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get the closest spot, I can't walk 15 feet. I'm the same way, I'll find the closest spot always, you know, I don't know if it's just the nature of man or what. But you know, it might in fact affect their business. Just because of the, you know, because you have to have a permit to actually park in those places, right?
Yeah.
And I
And
don't
that
know
the
what the
enforcement
protocol
would be-
is for that either. At
You-
what stage you get that permit, but
Well, the at Veterans Affairs, we had to do that for our veterans, and it's the ability to comfortably ambulate 50 meters without having to stop or rest. So that's 100 feet, basically 150 feet. So it's not that anybody with COPD, anybody who uses a walker in most cases qualify. Anybody who's very heavy and has difficulty walking would get access.
So I, just hearing what I'm hearing, I think we put one up on the northwest corner,
Northeast or northwest, dentist or
dentist,
dentist, okay?
on right there.
Really?
Put one in that intersection.
I don't think that's. what-
I don't agree with that spot either.
I'd be more comfortable still on a westbound lane, but
First Street West.
leave the one on the northeast corner.
By the
Right
Ross
there.
Dodds.
It's to leave that one and that one only at that intersection.
So you're suggesting 1 per intersection?
Yeah, I think that's adequate.
I have crossed because I know there's quite a few people
I know one on
that
the.
go into
If
the.
the aprons go in, the lines can
Right.
just be out.
Oh, the hearing places in the bottom, yeah,
And
yeah. The bottom left one.
because I know I just
Bottom right.
took 2 people there that were in wheelchairs, so.
Yeah.
You know, cross, as long as there's 2, you don't want to cross from each other or kitty corner.
Well, it prevents the
Yeah.
U-turn into the spot.
Yeah, which that's the other
Yeah.
access.
Now, one at Western Finance would be used probably more than anybody. you
Yeah.
know.
That's what you're saying.
Traffic in that side of the street anyway, but
Yeah.
I mean, we got a
And
hairdressing, we got that little
So
store on the corner.
So we
there.
tend to be all over the map here, but, I don't know if it matters whether we would be, if we, sounds like we wanna narrow it to 2 then maybe. So whether we're gonna be, kitty corner from each other or on the same side.
Well, kitty corner, because catch one east and one
Yeah.
west, it would make sense.
Yeah, it does.
It stops the U-turns.
One east and one west.
So which one is most important in front of Ross Todd, in front of,
Ross
The
Todd.
hearing
Western
place.
Financial.
I'd leave it that way.
so you want the northeast and the southwest?
Correct.
That seemed to be,
But the hearing place is on the southeast, so
Yeah.
why wouldn't that be more feasible then? If that, and you know what, even though we put those there, I mean, we're saying that the ear specialist hearing place is there, but I mean,
Doesn't mean it's there in 2 years.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's exactly.
And it
you
doesn't
know,
matter
so
where you put it, it's somebody's dumping it, yeah.
I think that might be more reasonable, in my opinion, it was on the southeast on that side, but I don't like the one on the northwest. I don't think there's enough
I don't
space
either.
there. I do not think that is.
The only reason I thought northwest is because the dentist office having the most traffic, but they need a business in downtown.
But they also have that big parking
No, no,
lot. too, that
yeah.
people Might work there.
I like the southwest and the north.
But they don't have a parking lot there for the dental clinic. That is special areas. of
Nope,
parking.
that's typical.
It's dental,
Is it-
dental clinic owns that
Yeah.
lot
In
between.
between there?
Yeah, especially isn't supposed to park there.
Oh,
That's all
park
dental
there.
clinic,
And it's supposed to park there, like,
Yeah, Unless something's transpired since,
No,
the
that's.
dental clinic
yeah.
bought it, that was their purchase, so that lot, so.
So
Okay.
then anybody that has wheelchair access or needs it can pull into there and.
Yeah,
navigate fairly
yeah.
well, so that's why southwest and northeast.
okay, so consensus southwest, northeast,
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
This one, read it, right?
So, yeah, remove that one, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from anybody on this corner?
So what did we have on the last corner for wheelchair access?
I think there was two, we could go back
I
to it.
think there's just one there,
Was there just one?
one on
An
the
ATV?
south side.
No, on the south side.
one in front of Connie's place.
Oh, okay. Is that where we'd want it, or we would want it on the other side?
I think more on the bank side.
So can we flip that one, Sarah, from the south to the north?
Yep.
Or south and north. We're not doing south. I thought we were doing two per intersection.
Well, this is again, a different intersection
It
because
is,
it's
it's
only
the end
got
of
two,
town.
it's
That's the
only
end
got
of
two bump
downtown.
outs, so.
Yeah, okay.
So everyone's comfortable with one at that intersection and then on the north side? Okay,
Isn't that, I think there's a handicap.
There's a-
spot there
there's a-
anyways
yeah,
on that side, isn't
yeah.
there?
Yeah.
I think there probably is one on both sides, but it's just a sign, so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Are the four-way stops marked on here?
That's what I was gonna ask, where are the stop signs at?
So the stop signs are now on the bump outs here.
You try one in the middle, see how that goes.
Yeah, the signs, stop signs would be removed from the middle of the intersections, and now we have them on the bump outs.
wow, that is a change.
Yeah, that would be different.
It's only gonna take about 20 years.
Maybe
It's-
At least it's a stop sign. They're used to stopping, whether it's in the center or it's on the side, at least they're stopping.
Now they won't stop because it's not where it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
maybe our snow removal would like that. Maybe a trade-off with the bump.
Maybe we need overhead.
Oh, yeah. that
okay,
true.
there, I think we can move on to the next one to the east.
All right, so at Center Street, the two east bump outs, we've made these ones quite a bit smaller than the rest. So these are more bump outs, more for to benefit the pedestrian crossings, and again, to move your stop signs onto these bump outs where they're visible. On the east side, they're a little bit bigger, the same size as the other intersections. And we have 3 wheelchair ramps again in the same corners as originally in the previous intersection. This one here, you've got your entrance into the parking lot, so.
Outside is not,
Yeah, the south side, right, the south side, Sarah, I think we mentioned that last time, and I forgot when we reviewed this the other day. So the south side on the park is currently parallel parking.
Oh, right in here?
along there. Yeah,
Okay, and you want to keep that parallel parking?
yeah,
Okay,
And so what about the wheelchair
well, really,
accesses on? Do we want 2 again on this one or?
I would think you would go to the same as you did on the previous corner.
then remove this. Since that's,
The one at the park should almost stay, 'cause I mean, people,
This is cenotaph you have to keep. You have to have access to that.
So the one down there, Sarah, even though it's parallel, we'll have to design it to have a wheelchair ramp
okay,
available there. And then we would go then across the street to the bank, credit union on the other side. Keep them kitty corner then.
so the bank,
And RBC has one inside their parking lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
The, over to the right, Sarah.
so we would keep that we handicap access there.
okay,
And then we would remove the one in the bottom there.
okay.
Any other questions, comments on this intersection?
One thing about these wheelchair, I mean, we'll have the ramping there, so at any time that we decided that there needed to be signage, because virtually it's just about the signage, right? We can still implement that, is that not correct?
Are we keeping the ramps without the?
Yeah,
Even
so
though we don't-
We would remove the ramp, like right where her hand is there on the screen, that ramp would be removed
From the sidewalk.
from the sidewalk, but,
But you got the other two coming.
well, I thought because we were taking the handicapped.
Yeah.
Parking out,
Right.
we would
Right.
remove that, again,
Lead to a
they
crosswalk.
could
Yeah.
get to the crosswalk.
Crosswalk.
Where
Oh,
there
yeah,
is
and that's
wheelchair
exactly-
ramps on the cross on the bump out.
As long as those stay, because,
Yeah, the ones on the bump out will stay,
Okay.
it would just remove that one there.
these will
just
stay.
adds such accessibility. It's awesome. Just having those ramps on them.
The guidelines for the wheelchair spots is we would need to have a wheelchair ramp next to it. We couldn't, like,
Yes.
it wouldn't meet code if they had to come out into the road and into the traffic lane to access this one.
Okay.
More challenging.
Yeah.
So we're still comfortable though, north, east, south, west,
Mhm.
okay?
Okay, and we'll remove these. So for the spots where I'm removing the wheelchair parking spot, I'm also going to be removing the wheelchair ramps. That's
Yes,
it.
yeah,
Okay,
Cause they'll have the ramps.
on the
basically
corners,
On the crosswalk.
yeah,
Right now, they just drive down Main Street anyways, like
Yeah.
right down the middle.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they can just pick one.
Okay, any other questions on this corner? Okay, so keep moving on then, Sarah. Now you got a couple more slides.
yeah, just a couple more. This one mainly might be a bit hard to see on the screen, but I believe you might have printouts there. So this is just their overall street painting. So this one is just to show, I mainly wanted to show that there are some crosswalks in the center of the road that were proposed as well. So there's
For that
one,
for-
Yeah, that's the existing one that's there now by the Legion.
and there's one in this provisional area on the east side.
That's down by the post office.
And
Which is good.
yes, these are just painted. There's no bump outs at these crosswalk locations. It's just paint on the asphalt.
Is there, excuse me, is there a ramp near the post office? I guess there's the driveway that goes into the apartment that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think the post office is around here, right? So you have all these ramps.
I'm wondering why we have parallel parking in front of the park only when the street width is the same, and if now's the time to change that.
Yeah, we could actually get more parking in there.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know why it's been there forever.
'Cause in front of- Well, I'm gonna say Paragon, but it's whatever it is.
Medical.
That's still.
That's still angle. It's just that last block from the alley, from the alley to the end of the park.
Changed Old Angle Park.
Yeah, why don't we have it all? I think you can get maybe one extra, two extra in there.
Oh, you'd probably get more than that. I think probably if I look there,
Sorry, Sarah.
there's maybe 3 stalls 3 parallel parking stalls on that lot.
It's
Turns
currently
into
parallel,
1,
but
2,
they're
3,
thinking
4.
it should go angle.
So go back to the, sorry, Sarah, if you could go back to the last drawing. Where we told you about the parallel, I think there's consensus that council would like to change that back, change that to angle again. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no difference in the.
No.
It just makes
width of
sense
the-
too with the jut outs, the
Oh,
way you're
yeah.
gonna be driving and stuff. I think.
Yeah,
the parallel
yeah.
parking just.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact
Angle
same
parking
thing,
is-
Council Warwick, that's gonna just,
Well, even angle parking down along the park on the south side as well, it's angle on the other. Why it shouldn't all be angle parking?
It's parallel parking down by the post office too.
Once you get past the
Yeah.
post office.
Well, once you get past,
Operators and stuff.
or I think the street. there-
Yeah, once you get
South side.
past that alley,
yeah.
Yeah, it's.
it's narrower street though.
But yeah, even around the park, if it's all angle parking.
Yeah, so it's angle-
Well, there's no change for us
But yeah,
right now as part of the construction on the east side of the park, so. So we'll change that to angle, then Sarah's got that captured. And we'll go from there.
there's subliminal messaging kind of go to us.
Any other questions on the lines?
Okay. So the last one I have here is the street furniture. I believe one of the things we did change is this bench did not have the armrests last time, so we've added those armrests. I know that was a comment at the last meeting as well, so just a little easier for elderly to get up and get up out of their seats. And we've removed the windscreens that were on here as well as the trees, as I've indicated before. So these are the selected furniture for each corner. So we've got our planters, got your garbage containers, the pedestrian lights will have banner connections like shown. This is the bike rack. We have roughly one on each corner. Recycle container, there will be a recycle sticker added to it. This is what the table looks like at the intersections, and I was talking about the bollards that stick out of those bump outs so that they become visible to the drivers. They look like this.
So the only comment, just on the pedestrian lights, Sarah, so we're currently working with ATCO. ATCO has Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. ATCO has a limited number of styles of pedestrian
Yeah,
lighting, so we're working with them to see if they have that in their catalog, in their repertoire. And if not, whether we can, if that's the style we want to go to, we can then purchase the lights ourselves, and they will be ours. And just a comment, so that the plan also requires the removal of the existing high lighting that's down
Cobra
town,
lighting.
Cobra lighting, thanks, Mr. Mayor, in the downtown block. So I think we have 13 Cobra lights. They will not be there, but we will have more pedestrian lights. I don't know if you have the number handy, Sarah, how many the design has.
yeah, I can check on I think it was 58, around that many. About
So
40,
there's
about 50.
probably that would be about 4 times the number of
And what
lights.
about lighting for the Senate House and
Well, that would probably be gone, because that Cobra light would be gone.
no, that's what I'm saying, when we put one on the back side of one of our,
I don't think they'll be high enough, Mr. Mayor,
okay.
but that's something we can look at.
Yeah, and this,
Does that?
one thing to
Sorry. Interfere with the ATCO's ability to read their,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
you
think,
said
I don't
so
think they have them on the main, but they would become ours then. So go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that this drawing that shows all the line painting has all these light standards shown.
Okay,
I just wanted to make it clear, we have not revised the locations of these based on the bump out sizes yet. We wanted to make sure that the bump outs looked good to council before we started to change those. So if you see them in a funny spot at the intersections, just know that's not finalized. But you can see here that there's many more light standards than there are right now. And I think
okay,
that
any questions on the furnishings?
Those are the modest priced ones.
I don't know if they're probably the middle of the road priced ones. I don't think they're the most inexpensive. But they're not the most expensive either, so.
on the previous presentation, we showed a lot of different alternatives that are more expensive and a few that are less expensive. For example, you can get plastic planters that are a lot cheaper. So these ones we have chosen the ones that are more affordable than the ones that were presented by 818 Studio, but we tried to stay as close as we could to this theme. The original planter that was proposed was double the price. This one's about 3,000, 2,500, something like that. The first one was more about $5,000 just for supply. So
Yeah, I can get a car for that.
Can we change that out for a downtown bathroom facility for the planters?
So I guess roll on then, Sarah, to the revised cost estimate.
okay, so I've provided the summary of costs in this table. So this first column here, this is our revised costs for this design I just reviewed with you. In the right-hand side, these are the costs that I reviewed with you last month. So you can compare and see the difference. So for Schedule A, which is the first 2 blocks on the west side, the costs have been reduced now to a total of 5.67 million, where it used to be 7.2 million. One of the things to note in here, the main cost difference is coming from the surface works for less concrete bump out area as well. The tree cost used to be in this item here. So that tree cost, getting rid of that, the trees reduced about $500,000 from that cost estimate. And then the street furniture cost has gone down too, because we have roughly about half the street furniture that was proposed last month. The other cost you'll see in here that's quite high is contaminated soil management. So it's about 900,000 for these first 2 blocks. So as mentioned last time, there's hydrocarbon contamination that was found in the soil, mostly on the west side of this project. But Englobe, who is doing our environmental work, they're planning to go back out to site and drill 2 more boreholes. And we're hoping by doing this, they're going to study how much of this hydrocarbon soil needs to be treated and hauled off site. And hopefully, as a result, this cost will be significantly lower. But until that study's done, I've kept the worst case kind of numbers in there. And then for provisional works, that's on the very east side, that last block. The
So
cost,
that's the block to the post office. We've kind of left that as provisional based on where we are with the funding. If it fit within our envelope, we would go down to the post office. If it didn't, we would stop at Center Street.
yeah. So the cost didn't change very much down on this end. There's very little revision because that starts after the last bump out. So the changes were mainly just little tweaking that we've done since the previous design. So if we did both projects, including contingency, total costs, 6.58 million.
It's like combined.
That's like 0.2. $912,000. The bottom number is the total project.
So as I said to Sarah, when I met with her yesterday and we reviewed the cost estimate, we're certainly now
In the ballpark.
in the ballpark is the exact word I used. we are anticipating, through the feds and the coal transition, that, infrastructure fund, that there's around 4 million there, which we would need to match with 25%. So that would minimum push us to 5.2, 5.3. So I think we're in the ballpark now, and if we can have some movement on the potential contaminated material, and if that number drops, I think we'll be within ballpark, be within budget, and maybe depending on how much it drops, we may be able to then consider the provisional. And again, these are estimates until such time as you go out and get the tender. Tenders could be lower, they could be higher, you don't know until you go through that process. This is kind of the best estimate based on units and quantities
Well, as we
and
see
stuff like
with
that.
our senior amenities project, the number that came in just was.
Yeah, I think there was a couple reasons with that. It was mid-year. And it was a smaller project. I think this one, if we tender it over the winter, I think there'll be significant interest in it. So, and that's always good. So that's where we're at with that. I don't know if there's any further comments. I guess Sarah wants to continue to the design and finish off the design. I guess I just want, consensus that you're comfortable with the changes and where we're at following the discussion today.
Going good.
It's better than it was, for sure.
The bump outs are much better. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's great.
And I know we did talk again last time about going kitty corner only. And I know when Brent brought up that point, it's pedestrian crossing didn't make sense. And Sarah, they couldn't find anywhere that in their research that
Well,
would
we gotta
happen.
be unique.
We would be unique. So
Yeah.
that's why there was but we did remove the two on the west. A little unfortunate. I would have liked to have one on the town office side, but there's not a fit on the auto dealer on the other side. It just wasn't a fit. So we removed both of them. So if our council's comfortable now, is that the direction I'm getting from? So
Yeah.
Sarah can continue on with the design?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
I think we're good, Sarah. Thanks.
all
Thanks
right.
for your time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Okay. See ya.
Mr. Neil or Mr. Mayor, is there a possibility that with the full transition dollars and that coming to a close, that there would be extra dollars available that we could access if we had to through that?
Well, the basis for that, what they did was they basically allocated, and I think we've gone through this, I think they basically allocated about $8 million for our region.
Right, yeah.
So that's not to say there would have been allocations in other regions, whether they weren't used or not used. There could be some more available that way, so.
Well, can we put the ball in motion to see if there is in fact some dollars
Yeah, I don't
left over
know.
that haven't been used?
I don't know if we'll get an answer at this point because there still is, they have until March of 2025 to spend and allocate the dollars. So
Well, I mean,
there might
I'm
be, I
being
don't,
proactive.
yeah,
and
no, we
being the
can, we
first
can
one
put
to
we can put the bug in their ear that if there was more that was not being allocated in other regions that, we could certainly use it. I just don't think that they would respond to us. They would say, okay, thank you, we'll keep that in mind. But I think all the other regions would be very similar to us.
They may want to.
And they're gonna wanna maximize what they can. so.
Well, I think my thoughts are we have a time frame, and some of that money may not be used in that time frame. So then what happens with those dollars?
Yeah.
You know, so what I'm saying is that if, you know, to be proactive and say, listen, we could use those dollars. We have a project on the table that we could use those dollars. If those dollars are not being used for those other allocations, then could we possibly?
We can
you
certainly
know,
ask,
Yeah.
certainly ask,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Motion to thank Sarah from MP for project update on the downtown redevelopment project. And Councilor Murphy, all in favor? Carried.
Okay, I don't, all,
Public presentations. Okay.
No, not yet.
Okay.
okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna spend some time now, sorry you have to listen to me go through this, but just wanna go through the spring budget report and tax rate options. So as council is aware, when we approved our budget in December, left us with a surplus of that time of $95,000. Since then, there's always information that comes up, things that change, and prior to setting the tax rate, we do a second review of the budget. So that's what this is now. So based on the report that administration has put together and the way it sits right now, there is a surplus of $136,582. Partly, and we'll go through why there's an increased surplus, but assessment levels have increased from the 22 assessment by $8.9 million. Of that $8.9 million, about half of it is exempt. So there were major increases to the hospital, JC School and Acadia Lodge on the assessment side, but it doesn't, they're all exempt, so we don't get any tax revenue, even though their assessed value went up. But there was an increase in residential property assessment of about 1.5 million. And there was an increase on the non-residential assessment of 2.5, so about $4 million taxable assessment increase. So if we kept the same municipal tax rates as we did in 2022, with the increased assessment, it would generate an additional $52,000 from the December budget. Administration has prepared this document though using, trying to keep the municipal tax revenue received in 23 equivalent to the tax revenue received in 2022. So what that means is that the tax rates will have to be decreased to do that. If council wishes to, there's options, and we'll get into the options on the assessment. I just wanted to let you know what's in this 136,000 surplus. So we have presented the budget and the number that's in there with a 1% decrease to the residential tax rate and a 3% decrease to the non-residential tax rate. So what that means is on the residential side, we will bring in $1,255 less than we did in 2022. And on the non-residential side, we'll bring in $5,700 more than we did in 2022. So it's a net of $44.98 from 2022 tax revenue, municipal tax revenue only. We're not talking school or Acadia. So we do have a report on options, and we'll get to that. I just wanted to let you know what's in here. So what's included in the budget report today is a 1% decrease to residential and a 3% decrease to the non-residential. Under the budget adjustments on the revenue side, so you see that $44.98 increase on the municipal tax revenue. That's what we just explained above. Our school tax requisition is $9,882 less than what it was in 2022. So we will be generating or collecting $661,000 of education tax. So on the tax rate will be lowered on the residential properties. But it is increased slightly for residential properties, and that's because the province tells us how much residential we collect, how much non-residential we collect. So we don't control that, so there will be a slight increase to the tax rate on the school side for non-residential properties. Acadia requisition, so it was, we need to increase the requisition by $4,700 from what the requisition was in 2022. So we do that as a tax portion of the tax rate. So the tax rate for both residential and non-residential will have to increase by 0.0073. So a very small percentage to come up with that 4,700. The other couple of good news items is there is a $90,000 increase in investment income. And that's due primarily to the increased interest rates. And the fact that we have a decent cash balance in the bank. So, and then of course, we mentioned earlier, the province did double the MSI operating grant. So that's an additional $152,000. So that's on that's kind of the highlights on the changes on the revenue side. On the administration side, basically we had planned to implement a new payroll system in 2022, but we didn't get to it till 2023. So we set that money aside from 2022 and pulled it back for 2023. And it was actually, we had budgeted 11.5, I think, and it actually came in at 81. So we removed the revenue from the Japanese student exchange program. So there's no student program planned this year. Fire was just an increase in the firefighting fees based on the 3-year average. And of course, the $440,000 is a contribution from the Firefighters Association, and that's for the purchase of the outside burn props. So that's the association will be paying the full cost of the burn props. Fire under our East Central Emergency Training Partnership, the province did reinstate that emergency training grant. So we're showing that revenue that we were approved for. Common services, just an increase in work billed to others, 3-year average. Streets and roads, a slight increase to the Building Canada Fund. I've got to get used to calling it the Building Canada Fund. It was formerly the federal gas tax for many, many years. The significant change you'll see, and it won't necessarily affect the bottom line, but we've moved the deferred revenue for the downtown redevelopment and the CN bridge replacement to 2024. So those projects we're anticipating now will be done in 2024. Water, there was a slight decrease in our estimated revenue. And again, that was based on our 3-year averages. When we brought it in December, we didn't have the last month of bills. So we tried to project, but there was actually decreased water consumption. So it's down slightly, small increase to our Canada Day grant from the feds. On the recreation side, we still have about $53,000 to spend on the seniors amenity zone project. Some of that is hold back from the work that was done. But that's grant money that's still there that can be spent. Arena, we've increased the arena rental revenue. Normally we try to use 3-year averages, but with the arena and COVID back and forth, the average would have been was lower. But we looked at what we brought in for the calendar year 22, and it was around $75,000. And then I compared where we were, what we brought in from between January and March of this year, and it's actually slightly ahead of what January to March 22 was. So I'm comfortable moving that up. So it will reflect about $75,000 in the budget, but an increase of 12.9. We will draw from operating reserves for the compressor overhaul. It didn't get done in 2022. Our contractor didn't get it done. But we will do that in 23. Same with the curling rink. It's the compressor overhaul is about 10 grand. So we split it between the arena ice plant and curling rink ice plant. Soccer, again, minor increase to their rates, Centennial Place, a minor increase in the rental revenue, the 3-year average. So those are the highlights, revenue side. Administration, gone through, the travel, subsistence and training, we've dropped it, by 3,300. There's been a decrease to our workers' compensation rate for 23. I talked earlier about the payroll, so we've reduced it by 3,800 from the original budget. There's been a decrease in employee non-T4 benefits of 3,800. We have increased the budget by $2,900 for antivirus protection, a stronger, more robust antivirus protection for our server and our softwares. And we missed this in the first iteration of the budget, the $2,000 for the Central Alberta Assessment Review Board membership. Council did authorize that last year to join. We just had forgot to put that 2,000 membership fee in. Reduced $5,000 because of the Japanese program not happening. Fire again, just some costs that are minor that reflect to 3-year averages. We have a decrease in cell phone costs. We've got a different system of switching at the fire hall now that it doesn't switch to the cell service as often as it did before. Again, we showed the 12.6 coming in on the regional fire service training grant, the 12.6 going out. So just so we're clear, the town of Hanna is the host or the banker of that training fund. It certainly will benefit all firefighters in the region. So it's not that 12.6 isn't directly for our firefighters. A portion of that will go towards our firefighters, but it will be available for the entire region. Bylaw enforcement. So when we approved the contract with bylaw enforcement officer, we did agree to the significant CPO training costs in 2023. So that's an increase to the budget there. Increase on the telephone allowance, but we do have a decrease to the actual cost of the bylaw enforcement officer contract from what was in the budget. Some minor increases to have a vehicle. You need to make sure you've got some money budgeted for repairs and petroleum, and then just some goods for uniform supplies and stuff that Tracy will need when she's back and operating. So dog control, again, there was a decrease in the contracted services. We had a specific amount set for animal control. But I removed that, says Tracy will be dealing with the animal control section under her normal bylaw contract. I do have in here, and again, this is open for discussion, so I know in the original budget, we had $7,400 for the Harvest Sky Animal Rescue. When they were here and did their presentation, they had requested 10. So I have bumped the budget by $2,600 for Harvest Sky. Go ahead.
I do have a little bit of a concern regarding that. My understanding is that they are covering a lot of outside Hanna area, East Central. They go into Wainwright, Stettler, looking at getting providing support into Saskatchewan, and I'm not sure that I am supportive of Hanna supporting other areas coverage. And so I think $7,400 is sufficient. Are they getting funds from the other areas that they're supporting as well? I don't know, but I don't feel that, you know, when do you draw the line? That is my concern. I don't mind so much supporting our direct area and some surrounding, but not into Stettler, Wainwright, other areas.
That said, I know some of those areas were set to take back though, like if we have surplus of cats or dogs, cats in particular, that go to other rescues outside of our area.
Are they helping with some of the expense?
Well, they're taking some of our animals away from us.
Yeah, I'd like to see the numbers.
Okay,
So yeah, as we move forward through this, if we want to make a change, then someone will have to make a motion to remove the 2,600. I think we can wait till the end after we've gone through everything, because there might be some other questions or comments that somebody wants to make, but we do have the additional 2,600 in the budget as it sits now, so. Just some minor increases, contract services, common services, streets and roads, so ATCO had to replace some street light davits and a base replacement on some of the street lights, and it would be, unfortunately, it's one of the ones that is non-invested, so that means it's the town's responsibility to pay for that repair, so that's a $10,000 increase. Increase to capital reserve, so that's the Building Canada Fund. We got an increase on the revenue side, but the plan is to transfer that into reserves, so there's an increase in the transfer to reserve. Water plant, again, decrease in consumption, 3-year average. Sewer, increase in telephone, that might come down as we move forward with our new phone system, but we haven't pulled it off of the original dedicated line and went to the VoIP system because we want to make sure that it works, because if the auto dialer fails, we're in big trouble. So regional waste, so it's just regional waste, the increase to transfer to reserves is just the difference between what we bring in when we charge out for Big Country Waste and what they allocate. So there's an increase to the reserve there. FCSS, we have a big change on the program development. So this one, and we talked a little bit about it at the last council meeting, the family and marriage therapy program. So they didn't invoice the town in 2012 and we missed it. So we didn't
2022?
pay, sorry, 2012, 22. Thank you for correcting me. So that's a $12,000 payment that we owe from last year. And then based on the increased use and increased subsidy, we've bumped that up by $6,000. So the contribution to the program in 2023 will be $30,000, of which 12 would have been 22 and 18 will be 23. So we talked about the success of the program, but with that success comes additional costs. So Visitor Information Center, I don't have a number here, but we need to be cognizant that, and I will be bringing an agreement to enter into with Harvest Sky. So they're going to manage the operation of the Visitor Information Center. One of the conditions in the agreement is that based on the I guess the financial situation at the end of the year, positive or negative, if the Harvest Sky finds themselves in a negative position operating the Visitor Information Center, that the town will subsidize those, recover those costs so that they're not out any financial dollars at the end of the day. And it'll really depend on grant dollars they receive. Canada Summer Jobs, I know they've applied for their positions there. Unfortunately, Canada Summer Jobs is notoriously slow in approving, so we haven't heard on ours. Nobody has heard whether they've been approved and for how much. So that'll be a big driver in where they're at. I think if they get the grant dollars that they anticipate or hope they would, I think it's going to be a pretty close to a break even situation. So
will that be affected by the state?
I don't know, Mr. Mayor. I've been asked that question. I'm not sure what all areas on the federal side is affected through this.
150,000 people.
Yeah. Normally, they're slow, and normally, I look back last year, we received notification of approval, and it was this last week in April, so. So we need to be cognizant of what might be cost.
And Mr. Neal, just on a go forward basis, like this year, we've given that position to the Harvest guy, but after this year, we're gonna have to look at a different alternative, aren't we? Because trying to fund, and not just fund it, but have people in place to run that.
Well, I guess my comment to that, Councilor Warwick, would be, I see this as again, a trial year. Maybe it turns out really well, and you'll only know from discussions with Mark and through the process, but if it turns out really well and they come back and Harvest Guy says, yeah, it worked out really good for us, we were glad to put some more time and some more effort into the tourism side of our business, they may want to again, but we won't know until they go through a year. But you're 100% right. They may come back and say, no, it was more than we wanted. It didn't hit the mark. And then I think we have to go and probably look back at whether it's the town taking over that operation again.
Yeah, well, and I happen to agree with that because there's only one person in Harvest Sky. And what is his mandate basically? You know, I guess then, like you said, it's a trial basis, and if majority of his time is being consumed with VIC or staffing issues along that lines, then you know, that is a bit of a concern. I think we're paying Mr. Nakota a fair amount of money for economic development, and is that where we want his majority of his time being spent? So I do have to.
Yeah, and it'll be, again, what percentage of his time,
Exactly.
we don't really know at this time. I think a lot of it will depend, 100% will depend on the quality of staff that they're able to retain and move forward. And if you've got competent, satisfactory staff, it's probably going to be limited. But until we go through the process, you won't know.
So my question is, in previous years, how was this, you know, how was this laid out? Do we have town staff?
So up until 2021, the town managed the program. So the students were hired by the town.
So did we have somebody in central office that was?
Well,
appointed to-
Lori
Okay,
spent
so-
time managing that,
Okay.
and the staff there.
Okay.
The advantage that Lynx had, and the advantage that Harvest Sky has, is that they can apply for federal grant dollars, and they can apply at a higher contribution rate. Full contribution rate up to $15 an hour if they're successful, because they're a not-for-profit. Municipalities get 50% of that. So, and the fact that we also hire a number of students under that program, you know, chances of getting the grant funding for the VIC was always limited. So Lynx was able to, and I think if you talked to Lynx last year, they showed a profit. But again, it was based on them being successful on the grant side too. So 100%, it's a trial year, and I've talked to Mark. We're not going to leave Mark in the dust. If Mark has some challenges, some issues, we'll certainly work with him to rectify them and move forward, because it is, you know, it is a service that we have provided and will provide. It just, when Lynx came to us with that proposal, it basically took $20,000 to $25,000 off our plate.
Well, and last year Harvest Guy had Tammy in place, and they did have the employees in place to help with that, right? Or Lynx did. Because
Lynx
they
did, yeah.
use her at a great level where she's not going to be there this year.
No, Tammy's
So
not
they're
there.
gonna have to outsource. what
Yeah.
that looks
But
like.
again, two different
Different
animals.
Yeah, well,
But
it's a
yeah,
cost.
and when we talked to Mark seemed to be accepting of moving forward because the tourism component of Harvest Sky. So,
Thank you.
so yeah, it is a trial year again,
Yeah, just curious.
unfortunately. Arena again, the compressor overhaul, park shop, telephone, the telephone system we changed to now has a subscription cost per phone, whereas before our VoIP system, they were free phones, everyone else, but we paid a subscription under administration. So it's just a reallocation of some costs there. Again, compressor overhaul, the curling
Do we
ring.
need a phone at the shop?
Well, they like to have one there. So I think they've got one there in the office and one upstairs for this, for the kids at coffee and stuff. So,
No, I just,
yeah, I know if everybody's got a cell, but
Yeah.
I don't know in that building if it's cell reception is fantastic either.
no,
so,
it's steel lighting.
Yeah,
Can I clarify with
Yeah.
that, Kim? That's not it's not an increase to the phone cost per se as much as a reallocation of the
yeah,
existing cost?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, lower the cost from the admin side, so. Fox Lake Park, so it's just an increased to the contract caretaker contract for an extended 4 weeks, so. We've extended it 2 weeks earlier in the year and 2 weeks later in the year, so now it'll be from May 1st to the end of September, so.
And what, excuse me, why is that? I know last year we had the windmill project. Are we
Well, we're
foreseeing
still,
that again this
yeah,
year? Is
yeah,
that
I don't
what it
know if
is
we'll
for?
see it,
In the fall?
I don't know if
maybe?
we'll see it to the same degree.
Okay.
The painters project started kicking off already.
Yeah.
We're starting to see parcels come through for painters, so. And basically, from what I've gathered, talking to the TransAlta guys and the Blue Earth guys, it's gonna be about a combination of people from both sites. So I'm thinking that, well, I'm not saying we're gonna have the same type of years we had last year, but well, very successful year. And the painter project is just basically straight west of the Garden Bank project now.
Right.
So I think we're still gonna have, well, I know we're gonna have quite a bit of activity because they're gonna use Greenslade's layout yard. And they've already signed a contract with me to do distribution of parcels and packages, so.
So, yeah, that's kind of why we went earlier than later, because last year we had them clamoring to get in. So, and we actually extended, I think, even to mid to late October, last year, as long as the weather was compliant, so. Again, same thing at the library from the, at the park shop, Centennial Place, just want to talk about it. So there's some changes there. We've really struggled for the last year in terms of having full-time staff coverage there. We've been looking for someone to fill that role. We've had a couple of people try that didn't fill the role to our satisfaction. And we've had a lady by the name of Darcy Lamson, who's moved to town, and we brought her in there and she's doing a fantastic job. So we're gonna move her into the full-time role because we don't want to lose her. We want to try and keep her. All our casuals at 1650 isn't cutting it, and we've had a significant turnover of staff, and we've had significant changes there. So we're gonna move Darcy into that role as of May 1st. So there's an increase on the full-time salaries and benefits cost. But there will be a decrease on the part-time salaries because she will be there 40 hours a week. So managing that. So she'll be basically taking over the role that Raylene played prior to Raylene moving into the office here. So since then, Raylene's been trying to help and oversee, but we just didn't find anybody who was a good fit. And now we have someone that's a good fit that we'd like to keep there in that position.
Talking
So,
to Kitty's corner that they're very happy that Darcy's there.
yeah, from everyone I've talked to, she's doing a really good job and everybody's happy. And no disrespect to the ones we had there before, but it's a different role because you do some admin stuff, but you do have an expectation on a lot of janitorial. And some of our staff, janitorial is not their favorite thing to do. And so, we're happy, and that's why we want to make that move. The elevator, again, it's an increased cost. We didn't do the 5-year inspection. They didn't do it. So I'm anticipating they're gonna come back and say that it needs to be done. The elevator is a whole other animal that nobody wants to deal with. So I've increased that in case they come back to say, well, we need to get that 5-year inspection completed, so we're not caught short there. So the other miscellaneous changes, so there's, if you compare the December budget to this one, there'll be some minor changes in a number of areas just based on 3-year average. Most of them will be a few $100s here or there, just based on 3-year averages. And just to point out too, I didn't identify it separately, but the insurance costs have increased more than we budgeted. We budgeted a 5% increase, and they're actually probably going to be closer to 10% increase. So we've got the actual insurance cost for 2023 in here. So capital items, not really a lot of changes. Our outside burn props we've added, and we talked about the revenue on the other side. The Palliser and Pioneer Trail. So if you remember, council gave approval to move forward on that earlier in the year. So it's in the budget now. So before we were going to take it from accumulated surplus, now it's in the budget and we don't need to take anything from accumulated surplus for it. We moved the downtown project and CN bridge replacement to 2024, as I said. The arena, we purchased the floor cleaner. It was 2,000 less than budgeted. The seniors amenity zone we talked about on the revenue side, the 53, here's our cost because we have to put 25% in. And parks, so we budgeted $28,000 for a new turf mower. We actually bought it for just over 20. We're trying something new. So we're purchased a gas model versus a diesel model. And we purchased it from Toro. They had the best price on a gas. And Kevin did that primarily in discussion with some other operators who have used the Toro gas and have said it works really well. So we're gonna give it a try.
So
So
when you say Toro, excuse me, was that purchased locally then?
yes,
Local, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah. And so again, according to the MGA, we must adopt a balanced budget. So if whatever we have for surplus at the end of the day, right now it says 136,582. We would transfer that into reserve or accumulated surplus. Again, administration, we have that surplus fund. It can be all transferred into reserve or surplus or a portion. We do, basically feel that there is an opportunity to purchase a vehicle if council wish to, because we've got that surplus. But if council doesn't want to go there, we can certainly transfer the full amount to the unrestricted operating or capital reserves, so for future use. So
With the vehicles, I've been watching fairly closely, and repairs are staying fairly consistent, if not going up. Our newest vehicle is 8 years old now, 2015.
well, we do have the one, the office truck is a 19, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, in
But
public
the
works,
fleet in public works, I think the newest is 15 and the newest on parks or community services is 13. So
it's like 10 and 8 years old.
yeah,
And cost of what significantly went up. Because it's just on animal products, most trucks right now are $100,000 trucks.
well, we've talked to both dealers again recently, and again, without formally asking them for a price. I do believe, my understanding is that a GM product will be more money.
Yeah.
A Dodge product will be a little bit less. So we think that if council wanted to move forward with a vehicle purchase, that probably 60 would be ample.
Yeah.
And we do get significant discount in this.
The fleet discount, yeah. So that's, I don't know where, if you wanna, Mr. Mayor, if you wanna now go into the tax rate options, before, or you want to talk about the budget before the tax rate options? They kind of go hand in
That
hand.
went up. I don't know, I think we need to consider the two vehicles, putting them back in, just because, like I said, the cost of repairs is starting to escalate, and you know, I think the stock rate at Hanna Chrysler is 125 or 135 an hour. And one that's the same thing, the cost of keeping older vehicles, and we still have old vehicle is becoming significant, so we buy new, we have warranty for
Well, 5 years,
5
whatever.
years, 3 years. We definitely don't mile them out, we time them.
That's right,
out.
yeah,
So,
yeah, we don't mile them out.
so,
But maybe we'll talk about tax rates, just if there's
Sure.
any questions, so. One of your forms is here, so that basically shows, as I said, if there was no change, that would be I guess, the fifth column over. If there's no change to the tax rate based on our increased assessment, we would generate $52,000 more. What we've got in the budget, as I said, was a decrease of 1 on the residential side and a decrease of 3% on the non-residential side, which brings us $4,500 more than last year. We looked at some other options and they're all there. And I guess if there's any other options that aren't on there, we can certainly move forward with. The other document you have too, basically is some comparisons of residential property taxes and non-residential property taxes. So they're just random properties on both sides. And if you look at the residential property tax sheet, the amount in the red as the difference is the municipal portion. The amount on the black is the total portion. So that would be the school and Acadia built in. So as you can see, there's about 15 properties on the residential side. 13 of them will see a decrease of the 15. One is pretty much the same as last year. And then one is a significant increase, but that is the apartment on Second Ave. So, and it had a significant increase to its assessment. So it went from 870,000 to just over $1 million. So generally, anybody who's getting an increase is getting an increase on their assessment. So that's the residential side. So I think it's across the board. Like I said, significant majority of people based on the 1 and 3 will see a decrease. On the non-residential side, it's again, pretty close to the same percentage, maybe not quite as high. You can see on there are a number of them that have gone up on the non-residential side, but again, it's a significant increase in their assessment that means it's why they're going up. So, and I'll use the Canada Grey, for example. Assessment went up $300,000. I think the Canalta Hotel went up significantly as well. I think it went up
are
$100,000.
those motels still attached to occupancy rates?
Part of a portion of the assessment is based on occupancy, yes. And saying that, and that's part of the rationalization with the apartment on Second Avenue as well. And like I said, your hotel might be worth this, but if at 50% occupancy, but if you have 100% occupancy, the value of that property is significantly more. So we do find with hotels, motels, and with apartments, there quite often is some variation from year to year based on that. But that's probably the big reason why they went up was they have been at close to full occupancy. So is there any comments on the tax rate with the way we've got it proposed, or is there interest in council seeing that tweaked in? And I would like to, I know we'll bring it back to the May meeting for tax rate bylaw approval. But I would like to leave here with a
With the
tax rate in
direction.
mind, because it's really complicated to be in the middle of the tax rate bylaw and being amending this by 1% and this by 1%, when it's gonna change to the tax rate. So I wanna make sure we have a good handle on it today and good consensus on it today moving forward, so. Interested in questions on both the budget and the tax rates, and just curious as to what council's thoughts are.
I'm not in favor of a decrease. As we have a couple of very large projects coming up, we need to generate some surplus. Just my feelings.
So you would be comfortable leaving the tax rates the same?
Correct.
We would generate $52,000 extra revenue.
Yep.
And again, what I would suggest to that, Mr. Mayor, if that was the consensus of council, that we would be deliberate in our message to our public on the increase, that it would be transferred and for future infrastructure
Correct.
projects. I think it's, nobody likes a tax increase. But I think if they know that it's designated, if there is one and it's designated for that, it tends to soften the blow a little bit, but I guess we need to hear from everybody else where they're at. Hey, go ahead, Vern.
I'm same with Danny, you know, leave it as is, you know, like I said, we got some major stuff coming up and, you know, it's, people know what they're already paying, so it's, if they know that this is going to help improve, infrastructure down the road. Because if we decrease, then all of a sudden next year, holy smokes, we gotta raise it up 4 to 5%. You know, where I'd rather be on a steady keel instead of up, down. It's a little easier.
Okay, yeah, might as well keep going down the road then.
It's actually not a tax increase because it's actually an assessment increase,
Yeah.
which means the value of the property has increased. If the value of property has gone down, you still pay less, but leaving the tax base what it was will allow us to hopefully not be as concerned. For example, the Acadia Foundation, if the COVID funding stops, we still have 50% bumps in the beds. And we're still waiting to get things changed, and you could see an increase there next year, which would be offset if we keep the tax base the same. They should be a little bit better.
So
off.
just to
great.
clarify though on Acadia, so Acadia is not affected by our municipal tax rate.
No, but I'm saying overall.
Yeah.
If that goes up, then it could impact on people in the big picture, so. I think just having a little bit of a cushion, because next year we might have to lower it, depending on where we're at, so I'm comfortable with leaving it the way it is.
So we didn't pull the comparables on if we left it the same, but, or they left the tax rate the same, but it will, obviously, if you look at this, if you look at the rates we provided and the examples, most people, I think on the residential side will still be probably very close to what they paid in 2022. It will depend on what their assessed value of the house went to. There'll probably be some more fluctuations on the non-residential because there was some increases in the assessment there. Yeah, so Kyle,
I'm comfortable with the decrease 1% and 3% for non-residential. And it's been, for 6 years, we've gone through this and done the same idea of balancing the revenue or the budget that we set in the fall. And every year there's discussion of, well, some year we're gonna have to increase it so much, and it's never happened due to good budgeting through this. There's already a comfortable surplus. These big projects are prepared for, in my mind, through the budget. And it's not significant either way, honestly. Leave it the same or decrease 1 or 3%, that $50,000 difference. It's more of a show of good faith. You know, if the assessment went up, we can decrease that to offset just a little bit. And we're sticking to the budget that we had set. in my mind. I also really like the idea of replacing those two trucks while we have the chance. And getting them in there and starting, then we're good for a few years again after that, in theory. Be nice to get those two done. That'd be the only change I'd make.
Councilor Warwick?
The first part of what Kyle said, I'll just say ditto to that. I agree. I'm with the balanced budget at a decrease of 1%, a decrease of 3%. I'm totally happy with the presentation that was given. I think as far as generating revenue, I mean, I've brought this up before and I'm going to bring it up again, is we have a building called the Harvest Sky Hub across the street that is going to be vacant and then, well, somewhat with very minimal income coming in through that building. And I think we should look at in the very near future selling that property. I think that, you know what, we have enough properties. We talk about utilization of properties in Hanna. I think that is going to be underutilized at a substantial rate. And I think, you know what, if we want to generate some revenue, I think there's a piece of property right there that we can generate some revenue with.
So again, that's a little.
I know it's not.
Futurish.
Yeah, it is.
Future looking, but I think, yeah, as we move forward, you know, if that's the direction council wishes to go, I think we obviously have some discussions with our tenants. In terms of where they're at and what that would do to our tenants. Again, it's not, and I don't want to seem hard, it's not our responsibility to find space for them. But I think we'd want to be cognizant of them and where they're at and see what other options they would have. And again, provide them with ample time to potentially find a new location.
So with all of that said, thank you, Mr. Neal. I think the time is now then. I know we know the timelines that are going to be happening with the end of some terms in that building. And I think sitting on a piece of property of that stature is, in my opinion, not fiscally responsible as a council. So I think it's time to move and have those conversations. And now is the time so that we can move on, not sit on it, you know, an empty building that we're going to be making, you know, a rent rate of between $300 and $500 a month, and it's going to cost us substantially more to operate. So that's just my comment on that.
Okay. Councilor Bowden.
I agree with what Councillor Olson and Warwick said regarding the decrease, for 1 and 3. I'm not in favor of supporting, purchasing additional vehicles. I'd like to see that money to go into reserves and, for future planning. I think $120,000 is a nice chunk to stick away in reserves and, have it applied towards some of the bigger projects we have on the go.
Councilor Kroll.
I agree with Kyle, and Angie and Sandra on the tax rate. I agree with Sandra on the truck purchase. They don't put enough miles on those trucks. You can do a lot of repairs for $120,000. And I agree with Angie on the hub building. I think it's time that you know, they commit to what they're doing or whatever, and we should move on with that.
Okay, any further comments? I guess trying to capture what the consensus of council would be. Obviously, it seems like there's consensus right now for the 1%, 3% decrease to the tax rates. And again, in regards to the truck and the only other, unless there's any other questions on the budget, I know there was a comment from Councilor Bowden about anything that we'd want to change, we would need to require, you know, a motion on, so.
I would like to provide a motion until, pardon me, until we see some actual figures as to how much support Hannah's Harvest Sky
Animal
and
rescue.
rescue is receiving from outside the area. I'm not prepared to support the additional funding. And it has nothing to do with animals or anything else. I think if there's a limit as to how much we can expect our residents supporting.
Discussion?
I agree with that, assessment, because, they haven't really showed a lot of figures. They've shown what they're bringing in, from the outside. And they're always, they're fundraising to raise funds to take care, but why should we be taking other animals in from the outside? And for somebody else that might not be paying their fair share.
And I'd just like to clarify, that information comes from where? That they're taking care of animals from all over Stettler and,
It's on their
Saskatchewan?
website. If you
Okay.
go onto their website, that they had said, plus their volunteer appreciation night, he also mentioned that they're expanding. They've identified that they are Central Alberta Animal Support, and that they are expanding, that they've got Stettler, Wainwright, a couple other areas, and expanding into Saskatchewan. It's on their website.
Okay.
I did check.
and their website also has, doesn't it have some budgetary information on it as well? Because it is a not-for-profit.
It is an not-for-profit, and I'm not sure what their website has or doesn't have. I know that when Trevor was here and presented, he presented their operating budget and I know they rely on significant fundraising, so it's always a hard budget to come up with. And I was at the volunteer appreciation, and I know that they, again, they're the Animal Rescue Society. And they're one of the only ones, so when people are looking to surrender cats or surrender dogs, they might be the closest in the area, and that's who they will approach. I will say, though, that they have indicated, even at the volunteer thing, and I think even in council, that they have refused animals when they don't have the capacity to take the animals, and then those people are, I don't know what they want to do with their animals, but find another place for them. But yeah, they seem to be one of the only animal rescues in the vicinity, so.
Well, and when you consider Stettler and Wainwright are larger centers than we are, why don't they have something to support their local animal population as well? It's hard, like I said, until I'd see the numbers, and I didn't check for their budget or anything on their website. I was checking for the information as far as where they're getting their rescues from.
And do we have that information? Because I can't seem to find, I guess maybe it's in a previous council package,
Well,
but do we have the actual Harvest
did you
Sky
pull up
budget
the
outlined?
report,
They did give us.
Lori?
I can't remember exactly.
I can if I,
I'm trying to remember what council meeting Trevor
just
was
trying to
here at.
see that
It was
too.
probably February or
Yeah.
maybe. And I don't know, I can't recall all the information they had in there, but I know they did have their proposed operating budget.
But Trevor did make mention when he was here that they do take animals from other jurisdictions too.
Yeah, they're not,
He
they
made
don't,
that, 'cause I did hear that.
they don't simply say that if you're from the town of Hanna, we
Right.
won't take your animal. If they have space in their facility, they'll take an animal from, I think, anywhere.
Well, I think given their name is Harvest Sky, I would imagine Special Areas 2, Youngstown and Hanna, that's a little different than Stettler and Wainwright. So.
Have you had any luck, Lori?
And I personally, my view is that, a good society takes care of their elderly, their impoverished and their animals. And they're not asking for a lot of money, but I think they're a very open, very transparent organization that has come out, and I'm certainly supportive either way, but I'm certainly supportive of them getting extra funding if they need it, because they don't ask unless they need it. So,
I have their annual report from 2022.
Yeah.
Or,
So did we not go from 5,000 up to 7,500? And then from now, they're asking for $10,000, is that?
So there's the history there. So as you can see, since they started providing, we've been at 5, we were up to 15 for 2 years when they were struggling to pay their bills. And then we kind of got into a 7,500 for 3 years. Oh, hold on there, Lori. And then they kind of were in limbo in 20 and 21. 22, actually the end of 21, they had decided to close their doors. They resurrected, came back and that was the request last year was 7424. Weird number, but that was the request that council approved in 2022. So we budgeted 7,400 in our 2023 budget. And now based on the presentation from Harvest Sky, they had requested if it was possible that 7,400 be 10. So that's where we've increased in the draft before you the $2,600 to get them to 10.
So I guess in reality, there was 2 years there when we could have give them an allocation of 7,500 and we gave them only 5. And so, I mean, what is the 10 going to be used for? Do we have that summary of what?
Well, I think
It's
it's
mostly operating.
all operating costs, whether it's paying for their facility or whether it's paying for their medical care. Primarily, I think those are the 2 big ticket items in there. The thing that I've always said about Harvest Sky or the SPCA before, and I know it's been controversial every year, the 10 years I'm here, whether we provide them funding and how much. The thing that I respect from them as a group is that they do a significant amount of fundraising on their own. And I give them credit for that versus saying, okay, we're not gonna fundraise this $10,000 or $15,000. We'll just ask for it from a government entity to provide that. So I think if you look at their costs, they estimate that they're gonna be around $50,000 in costs. You know, if we give them 10, we're basically providing them 20% of their funding and they're raising the other 80%. Because I don't believe there's any other municipal contributions from any municipality. So I think we're the only one, and everything else, as you say, whether it's adoption fees, surrenders, but you look at $22,000 in donations and $7,600 in fundraising that they raised. So,
and to clarify, Stetler actually has 2 rescue societies. They have the Animal Haven and Saving Grace Animal Society. So presumably he's talking about assisting them working together collaboratively as opposed to taking over the area.
I think, and I don't know for a fact, Councilor Murphy, but I do believe that each animal rescue society will operate differently, and depending on their resources and where they're at, some years they might have more dollars, more availability to handle animals, some maybe not as much, and I don't know where the Stetler are, maybe they're in a lull right now, I don't know, but I think there's a number of animal rescue societies out there, and from what I've read in papers, I think you generally found across the board, the animal rescue societies are functioning max or more than max. I know everyone talks about the COVID dog purchases, and now they're realizing, oh my God, a dog's a lot of work, and surrendering of dogs all over is crazy, so.
Yeah. I think they gotta maybe spend some money on education. There's too many people out there that are taking advantage of them. Just like they say, like, I know, I've had a dog all my life, you know. I've taken care of them. I mean, I having to depend on anybody else, you know, to do anything for them. These cats are. You know, there's owners in this town, there's a bylaw, you can only have so many cats. And, you know, that's something we gotta change, you know. Like, I mean, there's people that have 6 cats, you know, like. That's
There is,
totally unnecessary, I mean. You know.
there is
2
some
big dogs,
phoning
you
in.
know, like, or 4
Where
big
they,
dogs,
you know,
whatever.
people have had several cats and they, yeah, they, all of a sudden they decided it was more work. And more commitment and more expense. And instead of trying to do some outreach with others, they instantly phone, you know, the Harvest Sky Animal Shelter. And I know that for a fact. And it's unfortunate that, you know, they think that, you know, and they've had to say no often in this last couple of months, because they just don't have the capacity to take on all the animals.
I guess my thought, I'm comfortable with the additional $2,600. We've got so many examples of community groups that are fading away and not active and not, you know, enticing new members. So to see a group that's rejuvenated and then combine that with several years where they had reduced funding, it makes sense to give them that little bit extra right now, and hopefully it's not going to be a big ask in the coming years, just to help get them off to a start and they can get to a maintenance position.
Well, and they have changed a lot of things, like they got their barn buddy program now, where people like farmers can actually come in and pick up cats.
I love it.
Out
To see a
there.
society like that growing now with, you know, community group members that are new and young compared to all other service groups and associations, I'm comfortable giving them that additional 2,600.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table on the floor right now to not give them $2,600. All in favor of the motion?
Not giving it.
Yes, of pulling the
Okay.
2,600.
Opposed?
Counselor Warwick? You gotta put one way or
Yeah,
the
no, I
other.
know, I'm solid in my voting.
Okay.
I haven't wavered.
Motion is defeated.
Any other changes that anyone wants to propose?
Guys, I'll move that we put 2 vehicles back on the budget. Is it one for parks and one for public works? Is that 60,000 each?
Discussion?
Will that cause some vehicles at the lower end to get sold off, Mr. Neal, or are they just gonna get
Yeah,
implemented elsewhere?
no, it probably, one for sure, we.
Old blue?
Oh, blue,
Yeah.
okay.
We implemented,
I saw last week.
the old bylaw truck into the fleet, so now we'll have to pull, one out of the fleet for that. But I would think that there's probably one that would be surplus, and again, wouldn't have a lot of value, but would be surplus, and we would probably put it in, and might have a few items that we have in a surplus auction that we might move forward, but I don't know, if council approves this is step 1, but step 2 would be, I don't even know availability of.
Chrysler seems to have vehicles right now.
I know they're starting to build up from
Chef
where
is-
they were a few years ago.
GM is still hurting.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to put 2 vehicles back into the budget. All in favor? Opposed? Motion defeated.
okay, any other comments, changes?
So does that mean that money will go into reserve then?
Well, it means we didn't change. So right now, based on the 2 motions that have come forward, the budget will remain as it was presented.
Yeah, and we're good with the 1% and 3% decrease. I guess that's the next one.
That was what consensus was that I got, so,
You don't need a motion right back, do we?
no. But again, as I said before, you know, we walk away from this room and that's what we're gonna bring back.
That's a good sense, yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, for us to try on the spot that day to change it by a percent here or there, you know, then we have to alter, because the tax rate budget or tax rate bylaw is the actual tax rate. So then you'd be factoring in, okay, we want that to be 11.719 now. And so it's nice to have that decided upon going in. So
Mr. Neal, we're gonna try our best not to change our minds. But it depends, right? You never know.
wow,
Something could happen, another pandemic.
no.
You never know.
And again, at the end of the day, once we set the tax rate, we set the tax rate and that's what we collect on. The budget is a different story. If something changed and we needed to amend the budget down the road, that's certainly an option council can approve. And again, those dollars can come from surplus or whatever, if there was a need to spend some more dollars. So,
Okay, anything for round table?
Actually, I have another, I'm
Go ahead.
not done with budget
Okay.
yet. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple other questions. I had a question just in the curling rink expenses. There was a $10,000 allocation for 21, 22 and 23 for wall repair. So I'm just trying to get clarification. Is it keep getting pushed forward, or is that the amount of money that's being spent every year
no,
for
that
this?
just keeps
Keeps it
getting
pushed
carried
forward.
forward.
Oh, carry
And it's
forward.
carried
So-
forward primarily because we don't have a good answer, good solution to what it does. So if you look at on the main floor, if you look at the men's washing door.
Oh, yeah.
Started to get that.
Well, it's been like that for a long
It's been
time, but
like
how
that,
do we,
yeah. How do you fix it?
that? And we were trying to put some money aside to see if there was something that we could do to fix that, so.
Okay, thank you.
But it's not, yeah, it's just a carry forward. We
Okay,
haven't spent the
Okay,
money yet.
okay. Also, the other thing that I can't define in our budget is the Hanna Primary School Park. The costs related around it, the grass cutting, the snow removal, I'm just trying to figure out exactly what it is costing us as a town to uphold that piece of property.
So, Councilor Work, I won't have a figure for you, so.
Okay. 'Cause
It
it's
just
kind of
gets implemented
in
as one of our
parts, okay.
green spaces, one of our numerous green spaces that we cut. And again, I couldn't tell you when we do snow removal, if we spend an hour every time we do it, I don't know, I don't have probably come up with an estimate, but it would be strictly that, so.
Okay, so I guess my comment, or, I guess I'm looking for what's gonna be happening with that property in the future? Are we just gonna keep maintaining it at an expense to the town? And just forever, or is there gonna be a movement on that property, or what's happening with it?
So from my perspective, the town, when the primary school was taken down, the town wanted to ensure that we had some green space at the east end of the town. Because there is no green space or large green space on the east end of town is very limited. The playground was there. We wanted to make sure that that space was available to our residents to use. We have been in discussions with Prairie Land. Prairie Land owns the property. And basically have said if there was a proposal that came forward from anyone on that land, whether it was to develop that land for residential housing, whether it was to do something else with it, that they are open to that, and so are we. So I do see, it does have some opportunities for development, but again, you need to have a developer come forward with some dollars and to move forward. I could simply see the east half of that park be turned into some sort of development if the need ever came for it. But I do always have a concern as a town person that we have a responsibility to provide green spaces and open spaces for our residents to access. And we know that most of our green spaces are on the west side of town. And so it's nice to have some space there on the east side of town. So that's kind of the premise we went behind it. The school division is still responsible for any tree work done on the property, and they're responsible for the playgrounds, both inspecting and insuring and repairing. So we've taken over the turf and the sidewalks.
Okay, so I guess my concern with that building, and I know it's a concern with, you know, residents too, because I've had some questions and some conversations around it, is the fact that we do have a green space on the west side of town, the football field, green space over there that the Prairie Land fully maintains. The property, you know, the area around it. And so why is it our responsibility as a town to maintain a piece of Prairie Land's property on the east side of town, when they equally have the same piece of property on the west side of town, and this is being pushed on to the town of Hanna? Why is Prairie Land not being responsible, you know, to look after their own property in this incurring a cost to the town and to the citizens of our community?
So I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a cooperative partnership. That we're stepping up and helping some of, yes, they do take care of their JC shared property and the south football field, the north football field, but our residents all get to use that. You know, if we didn't have a good relationship with the school division could say that is not to be used by the public.
I'm not saying that we don't get to use it. We get to use all the green space.
And they
I'm just
maintain, but they
wondering-
maintain that portion
I
at
know,
no
so-
cost to us or our residents.
Exactly, but why couldn't they maintain that other place? We do have a cooperation, and I do agree, and this has been pointed out to me by our citizens. You know, they use our facilities at a reduced rate, sometimes free, our arenas, our pools, our, you know, and I believe in the partnership too. I don't have a problem with the partnership. I think it's great when you can collaborate with, you know, municipalities and school boards. But in the same regard, just the kind of the definitive what's happening between one side of the town and the other. And no movement on the property. It just remains vacant. You know, the minimal is being done there, nothing more, nothing less. And yeah, so I guess people are concerned about what that looks like, what's going to happen with it. Are we going to create a, you know, a proper green space, a dog park, whatever? I mean, I think there's been some different conversations around it. And I guess the other concern is why is it, if Prairie Land has the ability to take care of their properties in whole in the west side of town, why are they not taking care of their properties on the east side of town? And that is being an incurring cost for the municipality.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a partnership we entered into whenever council entered into that agreement.
I mean, they have to come out in the winter time and they have to plow sidewalks around JC Sherrick School. They have to do all of that. So what would disenable them to go to the east side of town and provide that same service on their property on the east side?
I don't think anything does. I don't think anything does, Councillor Warwick. It was just a decision at the time that we wanted to make sure that space was available and that we worked in partnership with them, and we agreed to do that. We're up in that
So
area.
ultimately,
We're up in that area cutting the grass. We're up in that area cleaning the sidewalks. So it just flowed, and that was the decision we came to. If there's
so
direction,
ultimately what could happen is if we push it back to them, they could tear the playground out and cut the grass and sidewalk and zero.
well,
And put no
there's no
trespassing.
access.
so
Well, they wouldn't.
if council wishes
How do you
to,
know that?
They have a
Well,
right to.
because they're invested in the community as well.
Yeah, but what's stopping them from tearing it down and just putting no access?
It's true, or selling the property.
Yeah.
Or creating, you know, a residential area or,
Nothing.
so if council, if it's a direction from council that they would like us to revisit that partnership, that maintenance agreement we have with them, certainly we will.
Well, there was a brief conversation about swapping that property for a piece of property on the other side of town, correct?
Yeah, the school in their long range plan school in their long range plan would love to have a dormitory. And one of the places that is attractive to them on the dormitory side would be in the old ATCO lands or the.
Beside the
campus.
lodge?
Beside the lodge. So that was always very preliminary discussed, that if they got to a point where they were serious about creating a dorm and building a dorm, constructing a dorm, that we could talk about a land swap of some sort. But I don't think it's at at a very preliminary stage. I don't think it's at any stage where there's any serious movement on it. As people know, cost of building and cost to build a dormitory is significant. So so that's just the arrangement we got into, Councillor Warwick, back when the primary school came down. We wanted to ensure that, and I want to be clear, the school division didn't come to us and say, if you don't do this, we're going to do this. It was just in discussion, how are we gonna maintain this? And would the town be interested in this? And we'll take over this, and all of our residents can use it as they have for the last 100 years, so.
Right. Well, and you know what, to be completely transparent, I mean, in a conversation a year and some ago with Kent, he said to me, town hasn't done anything with this property. And I was kind of taken back at that point in time too, because I understood it was Prairie Lands property.
It is.
And so, you know, it's a half fence property. There hasn't, so I guess, you know, I guess I can understand when people are concerned about what has transpired in this piece of property. Like, is there any movement to do something more than where it is sitting right now? Or are we just gonna leave it half fenced in, just mow it when we can?
Yep.
And that's it.
That's from my perspective, that's what we plan to do until there's a direction or development that comes forward for the future. So we're maintaining it as land, but we're certainly open to the conversation. If somebody came and wanted to create a residential development on the east half of the property, I think we're certainly very open to that discussion, and would Prairie Land would be. But until we haven't had any formal presentations or formal proposals from anybody on what to do with that land. So it has stayed in the same state it has since the school came down. Nothing more, nothing less. Like, we
Right.
haven't spent any more than we needed to. We've maintained it to, you know, our minimum standard to keep our residents happy with the level of the grass and the level of the snow removal, but that's all we've done. I know Prairie Land took a number of trees down last year. But we haven't done anything other than cutting the grass and doing the sidewalk.
Well,
Well, and the town really doesn't have a vision for a long-term plan either, correct?
Well, there's
For
nothing like,
developments like
no.
that land, and then on the east side of the Lutheran church where snow removal is, you know, that could be prime land as well, and it's pretty expensive land to be storing snow on it during, you know, that, you know, maybe is that part of Harvest Sky, you know, maybe there's some development that could be done. I know that Building Place is a bit of a thing. And, but there may be other property that is maybe prime, property that could be developed should the town decide that, we want to get into that sort of thing.
Oh, 100%. If council
And with
decided,
vision, And
but we haven't, because we've been sitting with 15 vacant
Exactly.
residential lots that we invested $1.4 million in.
exactly.
So to turn around and develop more lots.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that we would develop it. It would maybe market it, that land is prime land, and put it out there that, you know, if somebody wants to develop it, come to us and make a pitch, or at least nobody knows that it's available if we don't put it out there, do they?
No, but they, and again, I'm talking history. History of the town is the town has been the developer of any subdivisions.
Well, things can
Simply
change in
because the
history.
town takes the
Simply
loss.
because the town can afford to take the loss. If a private individual is going to develop and service a property, knowing what the value of our property is worth,
Mhm.
they're not going into that, they're not
It's
touching
no
with the
different than
temporary.
the proposal that they had over behind the industrial park on the east end of town with the subdevelopment, with the regional, with the development, their residential development.
Yeah.
Come on a piece of paper, but nothing ever.
Yeah, no, I don't know, we certainly could maybe do a better job marketing that there's vacant land, vacant unserviced land. But, and I don't wanna be a pessimist, but I don't see any developer coming into Hanna to develop a 30 lot subdivision there. We